Hi, I'm Melissa Bill, and welcome to the Business Roundup, where we catch up with the movers and shakers in the business world. Today, joining me is Pedro Rojas-Arroyo. He is the founder and CEO of Vivy Tech. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much, Melissa, for having me here. It's a pleasure to have this conversation with you and looking forward for it.
Now, I know you've had a very interesting journey so far. You kind of started off I would say, your journey in politics.
Yeah.
I guess, yeah, so that's pretty interesting. And then, made it full circle into business. But I think a lot of them kind of have some similarities or some blending of politics and business too, especially nowadays. So,
Yeah, 100%.
yeah, but I like to let people give their kind of background. So, how did you kind of get started? I know you really got started young in politics.
Yeah, 100%. So I am originally from Venezuela. I was born in Caracas. And since, Venezuela have been undergoing political turbulence for the last 25 something years. Uh, and I have always been very passionate about the values of a good standing society. So since I was 12 years old, I said to my mom and dad, I don't agree with this politics we're living in this country, and I want to go to the streets and fight for them. And at the start, it was very risky and all, but when I was 15, my birthday present was actually to get down in the streets and fight with the people for the change in Venezuela.
Wow, that's crazy. That's amazing. And so that
Yeah,
must have been, yeah.
yeah, it was a really complicated time for the country because it wasn't like it is right now. The country was totally locked down. There was hyperinflation, and the repression was out of the roof. To be honest with you, and I was one of the youngest ones there, and I seen things that for a kid, 15, 14, 16-year-old kids shouldn't be seeing and watching and living. But I think that forged me as a person and made me very clear of what I think it's good and what I know it's bad.
That makes sense. And then now, when did you come to, because then you eventually made it to the United States. When did you come to the United States?
So when I was a kid, I started coming in the summers for summer high school in Sarasota. So I did all my summers since I was like 13 years old, all the way to 19 years old. So 6 years spending in the west coast of Florida. After that, I started playing golf for the University of Tampa, and then I just moved to Boston a couple years ago, and now I'm here.
That's amazing. When did so you had your political journey. When did it kind of shift? Do you still kind of have some things with politics? Like, because I know it made it more towards like business, entrepreneurship. When did you have that shift?
Okay, so that shift is actually a very important part of, I'll call, my history. It happened when I was 15, turning 16 years old. Uh, and it was on this moment when the pandemic just started, uh, and Venezuela was undergoing a higher level of repression directly and targeted to certain people, and I was among that list. I seen my family go behind bars for absolutely no crimes. I've been detained. I've been unlawfully processed, and that's where I said, like, if I want to do a tangible change in this society, I have to go out, be bigger, like grow a bit out there. That's why I started my business venture. It's my track to success. I just want to be bigger and powerful enough to one day hopefully come back and do an actual change.
Yeah, it makes sense. And I know a lot of people, I mean, because, Venezuela is one of other just like Cuba in some ways. It was like free. There was very, very prosperous,
Yeah.
at one point. Beautiful place, fashion, I mean, everything. So, I mean, I know that's important too. Like when you kind of come to the US and stuff like that, do you ever like worry that those shifts could happen like in a place like the United States? Like a lot of people think that it would never happen here.
So a lot of people think that way. I So even though I'm not from here, from America, I love this country with my life, and I will always say it that this is the best country in the planet. Its values are the ones that should be preserved everywhere. And I think it is because of those values and those institutions that we have in this country that it's impossible that it goes that way. But uh, there has been certain tendencies of change and of people who are just going against society as we know it, and that has to stop.
Right, because it's kinda changes, like, when you're, like, in Venezuela, there is no free business or free trade. You can't really grow up or go beyond where you are. I mean, it's kind of really kind of blocks you in
They,
a lot of ways.
yeah, they just put a ceiling to the private sector, and the private sector is the heart of this country. This country is created by businesses, and especially small businesses. We don't really we don't really see it that much, but small businesses are the driver force of America itself. Uh, and when you start hearing this pro-communism activists, which are saying like, no, everything should be regulated and centralized and for the state and by the state, you just know two things. They have absolutely no clue of any economics because it doesn't make sense from an economic standpoint. But it also, they are not seeing the long term consequences. As someone that has seen that in its own country, I can tell you that centralizing and putting the government in the middle of everything, it's the worst thing that can happen to a country.
Right, because it gives a lot of that control, like, at least when you have free trade and free businesses, the businesses have power, they have power as well,
Yeah.
the people, but if the government has all the power in their hands, that could be a dangerous situation, that makes sense.
Yeah, it opened the doors for what I consider is call it like the curse of Venezuela, and that's corruption. When the government has everything, it opens the door for a lot of corruption and friends and family and nepotism and a ton of things that we don't like. uh, Private companies, especially these small businesses, are earning their life with sweat, tears, and work, and that's the cornerstone of America, as we have ever like studied and seen it. It's about work. It's about the work culture, and when you change that, it just all falls down.
That's true. Now, I know you were awarded because you kind of were in, and you have endeavors in fashion, music, events. You were awarded the Queen Elizabeth II International Jubilee Merit. What
Yes.
was that for? Can you discuss that?
100%. So it's actually a very interesting period of my life, which I look back with a lot of passion and just happy that it happened that way. So uh, in Venezuela, a thing that I was huge with was international relations and diplomacy and model of United Nations and all this stuff. And we actually had the opportunity to have the ambassador of the UK in one of the events I made of international event relations for young kids in Venezuela. And it was because of this effort to bring diplomacy for the table to all these kids that I was awarded. That it's a little pen. It's purple. You put on your suit, and it's one of the greatest honors I have to carry.
Oh, that's wonderful. I mean, and that kind of I know leads to like your, with it's Vivy Tech, correct? I'm saying it
Yes,
correctly.
Vivy Tech.
Um,
Yeah.
when you kind of like founded that company, what was some of the things that you were like that drove you? Like where yeah, I know it's like having social responsibility is part of it. What were some of the other things?
So there are, I think, two main components. The first one is that coming from Venezuela, but also have been experiencing business all over in Spain, in Panama, in Argentina. I detected one thing, and that one thing was that business was strictly for profit, and there's nothing wrong with business for profit. There is wrong in business without social good. The businesses have a responsibility that we should, as business owners, face to help the society we are in instead of making it worse. Because if you make it worse, then you open the doors for the governments to enter and install these communism, socialism views. So that was the first thing. And then the second thing was in one of our projects, it's called Cloud, and it's intended for banking literacy for young students all around the university. So I was studying in the University of Tampa at that time, and I after a few months there, I got to know that nobody had any idea how to manage their finances. And I was like, okay, so this is not native to Latin America alone. This is actually a generational problem here. And businesses, we should aim to solve these generational problems. So that's where the ideas converge. And I said, like, okay, we it's not only going to be this project, but it's all my lines of business are going to have a social component.
And now what are some of the things that you're involved with right now that, with that, like, as far as I know, talking about, like, for social value and having that social imprint.
So I think one of the m- biggest and overall just great initiative we have in Vivy, it's our educational fund. So we direct part of our own profits, basically like a tax system we put on ourselves, and we direct that profit for for scholarships for tuition of kids all around Latin America and Southern United States. Uh, we have currently 3 students enrolled. We're paying for their high schools. And also, we have some applications for boys and girls out of Maryland, Alabama, Florida, but also Panama, Colombia, Venezuela, Argentina. We detected that it is on this part of the educational process. It's not on university where people are actually foraged, on universities where they are reinforced. But if the high school process happens on a bad environment full of stuff that is not actually good for the student, it, they are not going to be able to grow as a person. So we said nobody's stuck on this. People are just paying college tuition, but there are a ton of people who cannot even go there because they are not finishing high school. So we're going to direct our efforts to them. Yes.
That's true to help, I know even like with literacy, even reading still,
Yes.
is a big issue just for, I mean, and having the comprehension to like read and stuff like that. It's, difficult. A lot of people are having a hard time. Um, and I know what are some of the other things that you're doing? Are there any projects coming up as well?
There are a ton of projects coming up. There are a ton. So we have been working in some projects all around the world, especially in Central America, Mexico, Argentina, and here in the States. In Argentina, we're working with some large scale projects. We have been visiting the embassy and the consulate of Argentina here in the States a lot, in the same compass or in the same ideas that huge companies like OpenAI are doing. They're having the same meetings that we are having, because our type of projects are directly related to investing in Argentina and making the Argentinian ecosystem better, for AI, for financial literacy, for banking. In Panama, it's kind of the same thing. We have one project called Banking Intelligence, which is the software that it's something it's truly revolutionary on the banking industry. We have been trying to push it out because it's very niche, but when you get what it does, it's really powerful. So what we do is, instead of reporting based on profiling, we do the same reporting based on artificial intelligence and transactional data. So it unlocks just a new door for every bank out there to get better data, better information, better everything. And we're doing a pilot program with the Chamber of Commerce of Panama right now.
That's amazing. And now what about with, now still as far as politics back home, do you still have anything as far as are you still, like, working with, like, Venezuela and that type of thing?
Yes. So actually, one of our companies is actively doing business out of Venezuela, and that's our coffee business. And it's not because we want to still to be in Venezuela, but because one of the best coffees in the planet comes from Venezuela. Uh, and we like to trade that coffee to the world so they can taste a little bit of what my home tastes like. That very, very good and excellent coffee. But in terms of Venezuela, I am just feeling every day more excited when I open the news and I see that there might be a conflict just about to happen. And people in the States might not comprehend this because they are thinking, oh, this conflict is going to be bad for the state. And it's not the case. Every Venezuelan I know, it's in favor of a armed conflict with Venezuela. It's the only way we can get rid of these guys.
And have that, I know, like, well, I know people in Colombia because Colombia is right next, door. And so there, a lot of people were going, I think Venezuelans were going to Colombia, and Colombia is having like a little bit of not issues, but there's some things starting to shift there as well.
Mhm. So I think all around the region we're seeing this. It's not only Colombia and Venezuela, but all around Latin America. Right now, we're actually facing the presidential elections in Chile, and you're seeing that this left government ideas are being rejected by the new generations of Latinos, because we're already seeing the damage. You see that Argentina is in Milei hands, Bolivia is in better hands, Ecuador is in great hands, Salvador, but we're also seeing this shift in Chile. Hopefully in Mexico something happens very soon. Also, one thing, Venezuela suffered from the biggest exodus in the history of humanity without an armed conflict. This is something that people don't really know, but more than 9 million Venezuelans are out of their country. That's more than any war. That's more than any conflict without a war.
Wow.
And the only way to bring these people back is with a country that is actually possible for them to stay and not die or get imprisoned. So when you see all this, like for example, the candidate of president for Chile, Kaiser, saying that he would indeed uh, support a armed invasion to Venezuela because it would help Chile. That actually makes sense, because all these illegal Venezuelans that are in Chile illegally would, the minute Venezuela is good, would that exact minute go back to Venezuela. So you solve the immigration problem in seconds.
That makes sense, because if it's like some place where they can like prosper and grow and have businesses and stuff like that, they're going to want to, if there's no reason to not be there. That
100%.
makes a lot of sense. Anywhere where you can find the opportunity and not be like, repressed and kept,
Exactly.
situation. That makes sense. And now if people wanted more information about you and the company and just the projects you're doing, what would be the best way to find it?
So we are actively on social media on our webpage, vivytech.com. So social media, Vivytech, everywhere you can find me. I am more active. So Pedro A Rojas on Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, everywhere. If you have an idea, if you have a business that you want to grow, a startup that has a social value, we can help you with that in Vivytech. We are actively getting new startup founders, new founders, and funding them, because we want to keep expanding our mission more than what the borders of our office can do. So if you want to reach out, please feel free. Our email is going to be on our webpage and social media, business@vivytech.com. Pretty easy. Feel free to contact us anytime.
That's amazing. I really appreciate you joining us and just, not only talking about the business aspect, the social, because if more business, like you pointed out, had a social conscience to
Yeah,
what they're doing, we would definitely resolve a lot of the issues. And the government would, like a good point you made, the government wouldn't have to be as much involved if the
exactly.
everybody kind of put their hands and helped out and kind of did their part.
A
So,
100%. Yeah. That's the whole idea. That's the main idea I wanted to transmit to you and to the
well,
audience.
yeah, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Melissa, for having us, and hope to talk again to you very soon.
Definitely. Thank you for joining the Business Roundup, where we always try to bring you interviews with some of the leading people in business, whether it be technology, finance, or energy. I hope you tune in. I hope you subscribe and listen, and we'll give you updates for new interviews that are coming up. Until next time, I'm Melissa Bell.